So thank you, Hung. That's a really interesting talk. So we'll move on to the next speaker. So next up we have Gwendolyn Lind, who is an undergraduate from Cal State Fullerton.
Hello, my name is Gwen, and I'm a mathematics student with a concentration in statistics. In our research, we are modeling COVID-19 data with a focus on the impacts of the pandemic within counties. In the beginning of the pandemic, regardless of who you were, the coronavirus created a wide range of uncertainty. It has impacted all of us tremendously, but for some, these impacts have been far greater. So we know there's a great deal of research into COVID-19. Some sources include such studies as molecular biology, policy decision, and data-driven analysis. However, the most frequent theme is modeling for predicting the spread of the disease. So it is one thing to create predictive models. It's another to understand what drives these predictions. And Dr. Bishara, a mathematic biologist and a collaborator with my mentor, Dr. Vaiseta, has theorized that mobility plays a key role in understanding any type of pandemic. Therefore, applying this theory, we aim to answer this question. Can statistical modeling approaches help us understand how mobility can be used to predict the spread of COVID-19, specifically into Southern California? To address this, we will build a series of robust statistical machine learning methods, and utilizing the best method, we will predict the number of COVID-19 cases in Southern California. Next, into data analysis, I'll break this process down into 3 steps. We need to collect the data, perform data wrangling, and lastly, create prediction models. First, in our research, we needed to find data that best fit with our objectives and utilizes mobility. Therefore, to collect our data, we need data looking into the number of people infected, number of deaths, and variables associated with mobility. And we extract this data from public websites, including Google, which reports movement trends by location, Apple, which reports transportation daily of different types, and finally, USA Facts, which reports the number of COVID-19 incidents by county. Here's a small snippet of the 3 sources and each in their own format. Google data tracks daily movements by rows, and the locations are by each column. However, Apple tracks daily movements by columns rather than rows, and each type of transit by rows rather than columns, making it quite challenging to combine these sources as they are now. So how do we deal with these different forms of data? The solution, we use data wrangling. And data wrangling is the process of gathering, selecting, and transforming data. More specifically, first, we begin with our 3 sources and finding a way of extracting their information. Second, considering the different formats, we merge or transform their information into one data set. Third, we filter, or rather pull the information that is relevant to our research. Fourth, to clean, we fix issues within the data set. And finally, weaving these 3 different sources together, we create one big data set. And from this one large data set, we created 2 subset data sets. Next, we will now choose the best model for predicting cases. Predictive modeling is a statistical technique or method that can predict future events from historical data. We performed a comprehensive comparative study on a variety of different methods. Our analysis confirmed that our time series performed the best. Let's start with a brief overview of how this model works. This technique is a time series model, and our method is called Generalized Linear Autoregressive Moving Average, or GLARMA for short. And there are many components within this method, and I'll break it down into 3 parts. First, the response variable follows a Poisson distribution to account for the time series nature. To provide further mathematical details, the response variable y sub t at time t is modeled by a Poisson distribution whose intensity function at time t is demonstrated by lambda sub t. However, our ultimate goal is to build a regression model, and this allows us to build a relationship for predicting the rate of infection through the predictors of mobility. And since the response variable follows a Poisson distribution, we utilize generalized linear models. More technically, the intensity of the Poisson distribution can be modeled by x, and z sub t, our additional term. Lastly, the z sub t term accounts for autocorrelation in 2 parts, autoregressive and moving average. And autoregressive allows our model at any time to consider some of its previous observations up to some lag p, while moving average essentially averages data through some window as we move through time up to some lag q. Showing the effectiveness of our model, we see the prediction model of Poisson in red and the actual data points in blue do not match as well as our GLARMA model does at predicting the peaks and valleys of our actual data. Now let's see some results. To begin, we are looking at a model we built for nationwide on a number of cases in 2 levels. Interestingly, we found that the lower income counties in black seem to mostly have a higher trend versus the more prosperous counties in red. To see if these trends persist, let's examine some of the Southern California counties. Looking into Imperial County, we see from June to September 2020 and January 2021, they experienced 2 significant surges in the reported number of cases. However, when looking into Ventura, we see a different trend. From June to September 2020, we see that the pattern of the spread of the disease remains nearly flat during the first surge. Comparing the 2 models side by side, we can see the different impacts the pandemic has had on each of these counties and how these trends may vary based on median income. Furthermore, when investigating Orange County, we notice a strange pattern. We see a more visual bump, a similar shape like in Imperial County, as well as a second sharp peak like we've seen in all the other counties. We theorize this may be due to the different cities within Orange that experience a range of economic disparities. In conclusion, our statistical modeling approaches revealed that our mobility variables are good predictors for the spread of the disease. Other studies utilize parameters such as onset symptoms, infection rates, and mortality rates. But what mobility variables provide further is a better understanding of human behavior and the constant changes. Additionally, we found that the GLARMA model proved to be a robust method for connecting mobility to predicting the number of cases. And there are numerous ways of modeling this, but we found that this approach provides reliable results. Lastly, in this model, it revealed different trends in the number of COVID-19 cases based on income levels within our counties. This is important for decision makers when equally allocating sufficient resources to different counties. Additionally, our research is showing the power of data science by addressing real global challenges such as this pandemic. The next logical step is to examine the economic disparities within each of the Southern California counties by obtaining data at the city level. Additionally, I am managing a new team of researchers in which the primary objective is to continually update our current models. Specifically, we plan to incorporate new data associated with the number of vaccines, data looking into preventive measures such as mask mandate policies, and the overall growth of the pandemic. Lastly, the aim of our research is to provide insights of how the pandemic behaves, as well as it becoming valuable information which creates a positive impact. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Gwendolyn Lind, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, thank you, Gwen. That was a really interesting talk, so I'll turn over to the judges now.
Okay, great. So I do have a question about the regression model, and I know that with my experience using regression models, sometimes there's difficulty scaling to data sets, even if the data sets differ slightly. And I'm wondering if any of the parameter sets you're working on at the county level you think could also have a difficulty scaling to counties in, say, a completely different part of the country or even in other parts of other countries in the world.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Yeah, you're trying to compare apples to apples here. And so what we try to do is we scaled our cities within the population of their size. And we're hoping when we further go into the cities, we'll be doing the same thing. So we are comparing the same thing. So those regression models will not have any errors. And they are actually true to representing the results.
Okay, if I can actually just tack on a quick follow-up question. Do you think that there's any parameters that are going to be established through this regression model that are going to be unique to areas despite the fact that you're still comparing apples and apples?
You're meaning like the variables we were using?
Yeah, or maybe future variables that you're talking about towards the end there.
Yeah, so in the beginning, we were utilizing mobility variables because the virus is spread through people in contact. And currently I'm leading a new team and we're looking to incorporate vaccine data, which has actually been hard to find for some reason for us. But we want to incorporate vaccine data. We're hoping to see a trend of vaccinations go up and the infection rates go down. And we more specifically want to look into these counties to see if there are similar trends with the way the vaccine data is going up and the infection rates goes down, if they're similar, because we did find 2 significant surges in the infected number of cases in between the county of these disparities. We want to see further on if these same disparities occur.
Okay, thank you.
He was asking a different question.
Hi, so I had a question that in the chat, I guess, was sort of hinted on from Steven, it seems, but I'll ask it anyway, slightly change it, I guess. So I was wondering if you've piloted this type of study in other, like maybe on the East Coast or something like that, and I guess that becomes limited by the information you can get and the data that's accessible. I was wondering if you had chosen a different geographical area, and if that data seems to have similar types of correlations where you're actually getting more accurate data based on the mobility parameters.
Yeah, that's a good point. We specifically chose Apple and Google data and USA Facts because they have a wide range of data. We could easily look into any other country, any other state, and so we can easily move into other areas, but we specifically chose Southern California because a lot of my team, we live in this area. So as a start, it's more of a multi-level research. So this is kind of the start of just establishing if mobility parameters do indeed make good predictions for the infected rate of COVID cases. So we are seeing that, yes, they seem to, and they do. Additionally, adding on the vaccine data, we hope to have a more robust data set, and it gives us more intel on what drives these predictions. And so, yes, back to your question, we can easily move into the other areas because we do have the data. We just have to grab it and filter it and do all the data wrangling bits.
Got it. Thanks. Yeah, it seems really promising. It's exciting.
Thank you. Yes, it is very exciting.
Okay, that seemed to answer Steve's question, I think. Although, just to add on his last question, do you have issues with privacy concerns in terms of getting the data and using the data?
Yeah, so what Google and Apple, they do, they track your information based off your phone. So it's based off the privacy of your phone if you check yes, if you're okay with it. So if you're requesting like information to go somewhere to the supermarket, you say yes, you're already in essence giving them permission when you check yes. So if you're an Apple or Google user, there is a privacy concern, but they don't necessarily know exactly who you are. They make sure to protect your privacy by having it in big reams of data. So there's no way if anyone can actually track exactly where you are, if say you're at a supermarket.
Okay, thank you. And I was going to add on a quick question before we finish. So I was wondering, did you try training your data on training your model on part of the data and then testing how well it predicts the non-trained data? To test how well it extrapolates and predict non-trained data sets?
Yes, we did a lot of cross-validation looking at the training and testing. And also what's really great about the GLARMA model is that it's very robust and it's constantly changing and improving on its errors as it's moving through the windows of time. So it's fixing if it, say, is overshooting a time of like predicting number of cases, it will adjust for that error, looking onto the accurate data set and adjust accordingly.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. So unless there are any other questions, we're going to take a short break. So we'll be back at 12 minutes past 1 for the next talk. So you guys, get some water, grab some coffee, have a breather, and we'll be back here in 12 minutes. All right, see you soon.